In this lesson, we're going to learn how to handle exceptions. A lot of the Rails methods we interact with will throw specific exceptions when something goes wrong. If a user makes a GET request to API/v1/game/37, but there is no game record with the ID 37, it will likely lead to an active record not found error. This is because the find method throws this exception when the ID it is given cannot be found in the database. Let's look at the controller action. If the ID in the param exists, the game is found and we'll get it rendered as JSON. If it does not exist, we'll get an exception. If this is a Rails API application that only returns JSON, we'll see a large exception as the response in a JSON format. If it's a full stack application that handles HTML as well, we'll likely see an error screen. What we want to do in this case for our API is respond with a smaller, more focused error to tell the API consumers what went wrong, rather than the default Rails exception. In order to do this, we must rescue the exception. We can handle this specific exception inside of the show action for the games controller by using rescue. We've used the rescue keyword and passed it a specific error to rescue from. Rescue is bound to the start of the show action, and if any code inside of it triggers an active record not found error, the block of code inside of rescue will run. So if our game isn't found, we'll render a nice error message stating, "This game does not exist," with the status code of 404. We could also access details about the specific exception by capturing the exception for our block. We do this with a hash rocket, and we'll pass the variable e to our block, which is the actual exception object. We can make method calls on it, like getting the original message of the exception, and pass that along as well. We'll send it along in a details key of the JSON object. This is great for lone request exceptions, but for something like active record not found, the majority of our actions will potentially trigger that exception. We can use inheritance and Rails built-in rescue from macro to handle this issue globally across all controllers by rescuing from active record not found in the application controller. The rescue from macro accepts an error just like rescue and also accepts some options. Here we're passing the with option the name of a method to run whenever that exception is thrown. So our games controller can drop the explicit exception handling, and we can handle this common exception in a single place, and every controller that inherits from application controller will run the not found error method whenever the exception is thrown. We may have exceptional behavior in a method that we want to rescue and handle a specific way, but we don't necessarily want to rescue the entire method, and we don't really care if the method is called from the API or from the console or a background job. So our controller rescue won't be helpful to us. Let's say we want to handle a potential exception in a model instance method. In this method, if the players or scores are invalid records, we want to either let the player models handle that appropriately, or we want to throw exceptions and let the caller of restart decide how to handle those. If the game is invalid though, we want to make sure we log that exception, send an email to the admins, and then raise the exception again for the caller to decide how to handle. We don't want to rescue the entire block of code, just the update line. We can focus our rescue by using begin and end alongside rescue. Here we use a begin block to isolate the parts of the method we want to rescue from to just the update call. We capture the active record invalid error and send it along to our logger and notify admins. We then call raise inside of the rescue block. What this will do is raise the currently rescued exception as if we never rescued it. This will allow our app to fail or be handled at a higher level. It will also allow us to capture the important details locally and send them off to our logger and notifier. For you, I've included this code sample. You need to modify the application controller shown to rescue all active record not found exceptions with a method named notFoundError. The method should render JSON and return a 404 status code. Use the other code sample, modify the restart method in the game model shown to rescue active record invalid exceptions that might occur during the update call. We want to pass the exception to external logger.log exception and admin notifier.send. Then we need to raise the exception so higher level parts of the application can receive the exception as well.